Right guys, so hopefully you've seen routes 1 and 2. This is routes 3 and 4 of Central Bedfordshire Council's consultation on sustainable transport corridors for Biggleswade. There's an online consultation, the routes are all shown on a map. This is route number 3 and 4, and it kind of splits off, and I'm going to try and do it in a loop to make it so I can get it into 2 videos rather than having 1 for each route, because route 1 and 2 are very much closely the same route until it gets nearer the end. So I'm going to try and do the same with routes 3 and 4. On the map, on the consultation, they show them coming out of the town centre and the high street up here. Obviously the railway station is going to be a destination for people to get to and from the new housing sort of to the east of Biggleswade, and in this case London Road, which you can get up to the A1 retail park, which I think is a thought in this, although these routes don't actually take it in, but we'll get to that as we go. So I'm now gonna get going. So this is obviously London Road. Quite a busy thoroughfare through Biggleswade, and this time of day it is about it's 20 to 6, so I'm hopefully you can hear me all right. Traffic noise is noisy today. I think I'm not used to being out and about rush hour because I work from home mostly now. I don't have to do this. I used to commute by bicycle every day to an office in London, and not all the way from here, and you must have just got used to the traffic noise, but this feels like it's thunderous. Right, so obviously on that side, that was controversial cycle markings. I don't know if that was, if they sort of said it was for COVID. I don't know if that was part of that, but yeah, there's some you can historically look back on. So by the way, I'm talking about the 2 cycle markings painted on the footway there, making that a shared surface. Interesting that it's on that side of the road when this is a wider surface. But anyway, for me, coming up London Road is it's not the most pleasant for cycling or walking. As you can hear, we're quite a lot of noise, quite a busy urban road. I mean, it's not unpleasant. It's it's Biggleswade. It's quite a green, nice, leafy town as it is. But this is a cycle route, and I must admit I don't go by the I just don't use the national cycle route sort of routes as such. I kind of just get to know my own routes, and most of them have been reasonably well designed, so they kind of take in where you want to go. Although it is interesting, especially in places where they introduced sort of new cycle routes and encouraged people onto bicycles. In London, they found that people would just cycle on their old bus route, which wasn't always the most suitable. But yeah, that's all challenges to overcome. So yeah, so I guess, yeah, maybe I don't know. I'm not really sure about those cycle markings on the footway. That's quite a narrow footway, and yeah, I mean, it's such a wide carriageway. They've obviously used a bit of white paint. I don't know if a cycle lane in the carriageway might have been more effective. I know that because there's not that much parking. It's all double yellow, so yeah. I mean, I know if you've got a lot of carriageway parking, so just painted on cycle lanes are meaningless because people just park in them. But I mean, for me on London Road, you've got such a wide, you've got loads of space. Look at that, you've got loads of carriageway there. And there's no reason why you couldn't slow the traffic up a bit. It's an urban area, and the cars feel like they're going quite fast to me. So with all this space, what I was saying, I keep going off on tangents. You could have proper enforceable cycle lanes, better yet, segregated ones, fully segregated or semi-segregated. They're these things called orcas that you can get, and they're like a big plastic hump. It's supposed to look a bit like a killer whale. They're black and white, and they screw down to the road surface. and they've been quite effective in certain places. You only have to look at, and if you put into, you know, just put into Google council cycle scheme, you'll obviously get a bit of contentious noise from, you know, disgruntled people, but you will also see the benefits to it. There's a lot of, seems to be a fair bit of street furniture as well in the footway. So this is London Road. This is routes 3 and 4, takes this to start with, and then I'm gonna have to look at my map now. I don't know what I'm doing. So obviously don't get your phone out as you're crossing the middle of the road. That's me being silly. Right, so route 3 is up Eagle Farm Road. I know that reasonably well because I've cycled up there before, because that's the way up to Saxton Leisure Centre. So we'll do that one first, then we'll come back round and take in the rest of London Road. But obviously London Road follows round to the junction at the A1 to the south of Biggleswade, and also the A1 Retail Park, which is a popular destination for people. It's got good, you know, reasonably good anchor shops for a retail area that you haven't got in the town centre, but you obviously don't get the quaintness and the niceness of the oldie worldy feel of Biggleswade town centre, which I think is a great little town centre, albeit reasonably dominated by cars in the old market square. It seems to be just chock-a-block with cars. So this is Drove Road. A little bit of routes 1 and 2 go along Drove Road and cross it, but you'll see that in the previous video. I expect these will all go at the same time. This is then Eagle Farm Road, and it's quite an unusual sort of, it starts off quite a residential road, and it sort of peters out into sort of where the new estate starts. And it's the same I've noticed with the other road in routes 1 and 2, Hitchmead Road. That kind of just sort of peters out. So I think it feels like Biggleswade was probably always had a view to expand sort of east, because these roads do sort of go to it. Now routes 1 and 2, well, I'm repeating myself probably, but you would have seen sort of where I thought the logic of them was. This is quite interesting. I've just noticed there's no road markings down here, and that's a thing that a lot of councils do now, and that's to kind of, you know, because there's no point in having a centre line if you've got cars parked on both sides, because it effectively is not the centre of the carriageway. And so it could encourage, say, like a cyclist coming the other way to ride in the door zone. If they want to tuck in on their side of the road, and someone opens a door on them, they've had it. Well, not had it, but it's nasty being doored. So that's maybe the idea behind not having the road markings, although could well just be that someone forgot. Footways are a bit knackered here. This is a poorly constructed crossover here, well used one, lots of garages down there. Reasonably wide footway, loads of carriageway space, residential on this side, but not very dense, so the parking doesn't seem to be a problem. Quite big front gardens, so plenty of opportunity for off-street parking. Is this? Oh, this is Stratton Upper School. I'm still getting used to the area, so I'm not by any means really au fait with it in a big way. So, but you could, you know, I don't know what improvements the council's got in mind, to be honest. But here, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's really busy. But if you want to encourage people to get off their cars, get out of their cars and get on their bike, then putting the good infrastructure that makes them feel safe is a really good way of doing that. There are lots of barriers, or perceived barriers, for people who don't want to walk and cycle. And one of them is not having their own space on the road. And so you've got so much space here, you can nick a bit of that carriageway, and put in a dedicated cycle lane. And I imagine, because of the school, I imagine this might be 3:30, more like the M25 than a quiet residential road, but I've come out at quieter times because that's when I can get out. I've been at work, obviously. So yeah, we get down to the end here, and so then it's like a turning head here, which I presume is for turning school buses, because there are some dilapidated school bus markings here. Now that, if you cut through there, that takes you up to, you can cut through to the Saxon Pool and all that, and you can see that's a shared little cut through there, and that does come up on Google when you want to, when you put in Google, because sometimes Google cycle routes are a bit funny. If you, that's a, you know, that is actually another thing, is routing, and they haven't really found a really cast iron way of doing your sat nav while you're cycling that's as safe as it could be, because you do not want to be studying a map with your head down on a handlebar mounted phone or something if you're cycling, especially in a busy urban area. You want to have your wits about you. So yeah, so obviously we leave Eagle Farm Road. This may still be called Eagle Farm Road, but we've got a shared path there at the blue roundel. So you've got the end of route there. That doesn't mean you've got to get off your bike. That end of route blue square sign there doesn't mean you've got to get off your bike or anything. That just means that it's not part of a designated cycle route, so then you're back in, you're on a normal road that's for everyone, or not a published cycle route, I suppose. I've not always been, I suppose it's to let you know as a cyclist not to look out for any more blue directional signs until you come back onto another cycle route. So what I'll do, guys, I think I'll speed this bit of footage up, just because there's not really a great deal more I can say, because I don't think this alley changes too much, although maybe not, we're coming to the end of it now. And suddenly, just like that, we're back out in the new bit again. So this is definitely better at the moment than Route 1. So I think, I mean, maybe sort of the thought behind this is if there's reasonably good infrastructure already, maybe they don't have to do this all in routes. I don't know what the thought is behind it, to be honest. But if they could just take the worst bits of all the routes, maybe that might be the best approach, but we'll see. This all remains to be seen. It's very early days of the consultation, so this is obviously some sort of sustainable urban drainage ditch. I don't know who's responsible. I think the council's responsible for managing SUDs, they call it, urban drainage, but I say the council, it'd be the local lead flood authority, I think is the term. I presume that's Central Beds, not the town council. But again, these are quite sympathetically done properties. They're not all the same. These ones are maybe a bit samey with these yellow bricks, but it's not bad. I've seen some quite far worse newish developments. I think loads of lessons are being learned right back from like the 60s and 70s, and still being learned, I expect. Quite nice. Sort of, that's all obviously carriage on. There's another one of those little chests there, which I mentioned at the end of Route 2, I think, or 1. I presume their little kids have put in their plastic, sort of bronze versions of their plasticine sculptures of the finds that may have been found when they dug all this out to build the housing. That's fairly beefy structure there coming up on this little drainage run, and there's things like that can actually prove to be a barrier to the people designing these things. If you don't quite have the width when you want to go across something like that, then to get across it, like beside it, you've got to put in another structure of some sort. And you do find that on bridges over railways and things. And there's one in Biggleswade, and the Potton Road railway bridge. The footways are about and I don't know what they 60 centimeters across. Someone's coming the other way, one of you ends up in the carriageway. Oh, there's loads of space. But yeah, that's just the kind of things I'm thinking about. Although I'm probably running out of things to say now, because this is kind of, we know where we're going if you've seen 1 and 2. So I'm just gonna be a bit of a assertive pedestrian there. He did slow for me, but that is a designated crossing point, and things like that where you haven't got any signals or road markings like a zebra, drivers can take a bit of advantage there. If they're risk takers, they'll accelerate towards it to try and beat you across and stuff like that. And I'm obviously speaking as someone that walks and cycles for all my journeys around town, because I don't drive. So that's why there's a bit of a cycling bent to this kind of talk, to be honest. It's quite pleasant though. It's quite green and leafy. This is a bit of a strange sort of thing with this. It just seems a bit weird to have like a moat between you and the houses. I don't know. I suppose it's more sustainable than a culverted drainage thing. And I suppose having the plants and that growing in it soaks it all up. But yeah, maybe some more little bridges across, because you've got a reasonable detour to get to the playing fields and play area. Yeah, anyway, just my sort of observations on it really. You'll obviously have your own. I'm looking at it from an outsider to Biggleswade really. I only moved here like just the end of last year. I've seen massive improvements in other areas from walking and cycling improvements, if you like. So you know, once you put in the walking and cycling improvements, it's the associated improvements that go with it. You know, if you sort of take cars out of shopping areas and make them really pedestrianised, you can, you know, get a totally different sort of culture of business there, and it becomes a real destination. And I'd encourage you to have a look at Francis Road in Leighton, which was a B road that was pedestrianised, and also Orford Road in Walthamstow, which was quite an affluent little shopping street, but it was a through route and used as a rat run, and they pedestrianised it and made it buses only. And I think there was a view to take the buses out, but I don't know what happened with that. But it went from having sort of 4 or 5 empty shops and no businesses being empty within a few months of that being done, because suddenly you could have tables and chairs outside, you could have a cafe culture. Even businesses that didn't necessarily have seating outside were able to offer it for other things. And like the cake shop, you know, was then able to sell coffee and things like that, and that sort of thing. So this is the end of Route 3. So just having quickly consulted the map, Route 4, I think, is the drawings on the 4 routes on the council consultation are not that clear where you get out here, because the roads are a lot smaller, so you can't necessarily see exactly where they are. They're kind of like just sort of directional, wide, chunky lines that take in some road names, but also just show a bit of permeability through Biggleswade out to the countryside beyond and through this estate. And obviously I think you know, a primary goal of them will be to get people who live here, which is obviously reasonably car dominant. Loads of people have got garages and off-street parking. They were obviously designed with it because it's new, to maybe be able to get out of their cars and for short journeys walk or cycle into the town centre. And it's not that bad, and it's, you know, it's pretty pleasant. It's a spring evening. We're probably just losing the light now, and this camera's not amazing for low light conditions. So yeah, I'm just wondering if I've gone off. No, I haven't gone off. I think actually, yeah, so Route 4 does take in Baden-Powell Way. So yeah, you've got loads of space. It's horrible. I have actually cycled down Baden-Powell Way. It's a 40. I mean, I'm not on on like a road bike, head down and zooming along. I'm just your kind of average guy. I have a backpack or a pannier, and it's just how I go to the shops or whatever. Visit people, I go by bike. Blimey, someone's got the biggest telly I've ever seen, I think, in one of those houses over there. It must be as big as their wall. I can see it from here. Anyway, that is a digression. Loads of space here. So this obviously, I presume, is shared path. So probably had I, because I think I came and cycled along here before I moved to Biggleswade to kind of just get a look and a feel for the place. See if there was a nice route through to the A1 retail park from where I live, which is kind of that side of town. So had I known, had I been a bit more savvy or planned it better, or maybe if the signage had been better as well, or the route I'd taken was better created to encourage me onto these shared paths, I wouldn't have needed to dice it with the traffic and the 40 mile an hour. And I'm hoping that's the kind of improvements that this scheme might be able to make, where you don't have to think about it, where you get on your bike or you get out walking and you don't think, how am I going to get across there? I mean, it's not so bad in Biggleswade. You don't have huge dual carriageways going through the town centre or anything like that you get in some urban areas. So I think there are some challenges that won't be faced, but then there are areas like the A1 retail park, to get sort of across the road. You've only got one crossing there, and if you need to get to sort of like the Lidl side to the Wilkinson side, it's a bit of a faff actually. It's quite a convoluted way to get around one single crossing point, but there you go. I mean, I look at this from the point of view where I want perfection for walking and cycling, because that's my mode of transport. And so I realise you've got to have compromise, you've got to have consideration for all road users. But you know, when I'm doing this for the Walking and Cycling in Biggleswade Facebook group, so I'd like to see absolute A1 improvements for walking and cycling in Biggleswade, because while it's not bad, it's not good. You know, I suppose it could be worse, but it could be a heck of a lot better. You know, there's so many, especially in and around the town centre. I think these routes permeating through the estates, I don't know how much say the council gets in what happens, because I'm not sure if they're all public highway, but that'll be questions to ask at the consultation. But in the in and around the town centre, just getting sort of from one side really, sort of the Crab Lane side through to the Audi side, is actually a bit of a pain. Walking or cycling, you can't just sort of drift. You've got to sort of think, right, I've got to walk up this road, cross this crossing, back down that way. Oh yeah, there's a quick shortcut there through that alley. And yeah, and it's not always the most pleasant. But it is a historic town, and it was kind of built probably with a horse and cart in mind. So yeah, and all the little ginnels and alleyways, just a sort of common knowledge. And maybe I'm kind of saying that as well because I'm not used to it as someone that's only just moved to the town. But I'd imagine, I mean, all these new houses are brand spanking new. Got 500 new homes going at the top of Fursenal Road. The potential of this garden village over there, that I believe is part of the funding for this, or money towards funding that. All those people, you know, lots of them are not going to be moving from one bit of Biggleswade to there, and if they are, someone's got to move into that house. So I'd imagine Biggleswade population is going to be growing very, very quickly with people that don't know the town. And if we can make it easier for them, I say we, you know, campaign hat on, but if the council can make it easier for people just to not think about walking and cycling, it just comes naturally to them, especially the new people, then that's built in. You know, that's there to stay, and then, you know, their children will think on it, and you can create that sort of generations of people that are happy to go by active travel, to use that many times coined phrase in local authority. But I mean, Holland's obviously the prime example, and I think this might be the first time I've mentioned Holland on these videos, but it's yeah, that's obviously the standout example of how walking and cycling infrastructure is built at the forefront of any design rather than the sort of traffic. So just trying to get my bearings. Oh right, so that's Saxon and all that, the Paul and Leisure Centre. So where do we go from here? Chambers Way, according to the Route 4 plan. So hopefully you can still see what's going on. I'm going to try and lighten this in the edit if it's getting a bit dark. It's only about 6 minutes past 6. So this is obviously shared here. So here you've got an example of where an improvement could be made. Again, separating pedestrians, cyclists and motorists. A reasonable amount of space. Don't know what this area is like for traffic at rush hours, but like these sort of bus lay-bys, they're taken out in a lot of designs to give a bit more space over to pedestrians, especially if you want to put bikes. So if you've got people queuing at a bus stop and cyclists on a shared path, although I couldn't see which way the arrow was pointing, it was very faded, but you do not want cyclists really dicing it with people queuing for a bus. That's not something you want to do. So you could put the bus stop against the carriageway, have a bus stop bypass around the back, or floating bus stop they used to call them, but I think they took that, I don't think they use that anymore. The terminology does change. So if you had the carriageway, you know, the edge of the carriageway there, and the bus just queued in the carriageway, the people you inconvenience are the motorists who have to queue behind it, which they have to give way to buses anyway. And the bus drivers prefer it because they haven't got to pull out into traffic, they can just move off. So that's just one. I'm sort of picking little random bits here, and you might think, why is he talking about that? I'm not. I used to work in highways in design, but I didn't really do much on the design side. I ended up doing a lot of the public engagement stuff, so I used to be able to talk about it, talk the iron legs off a donkey about it, and I've probably been doing that now for the best part of an hour on this video. But if you don't like my talking, feel free to mute it and just look at the route, because really I just wanted to just get this out there. I wanted to walk the routes myself and see what they felt like, see what they look like, see if how the routes are going to benefit me. You know, councils potentially with developers' money spending, you know, a lot of money on walking and cycling improvements. As someone that walks and cycles, I'm taking an interest. I don't work for the council or anything like that. I don't work for the consultant or the developer. I just moved to Biggleswade. I think it's important that walking and cycling is promoted as much as possible, and so I thought I'd have a bit of a campaign. So I'm just walking around here because this is the way the footway's taking me, and I think I may be lost. Looking at the lichen and that going on the roofs. So this is actually Chambers Way, so that's why I think kind of I hadn't really twigged that I'd gone into a new road name, so I was looking for a road name on a right bend. But so we've come to the top of London Road. I'm going to cross here now because I know I want to turn right at the top, and it's a nicer, although there is a pedestrian refuge there, you've still got to cross 2 lanes of traffic that side, 1 lane of traffic there, when I can just cross 2 here. So if you're, you know, pedestrian desire line, if you're walking, you're already thinking you're going right, you want to be on this side, so you're going to cross when it's safe to do so. And it's just little things like that where you could improve the design, because there's a big tall curb face there. So maybe, I don't know, I mean, do you need all this space here? Probably not. So this is obviously London Road. I mean, I say you need all this space. You need all this space, but not for cars, is what I'm saying. I don't know if that's clear when I'm talking. So this is London Road. It has a non-enforceable cycle lane, which, yeah, they're all right. They're better than nothing, I suppose. Because it gives you this, you know, if you're in one, the driver some idea that there might be cyclists about. It's only on one side, not the other, and it would be amazing to see full width cycle lanes segregated on London Road, just to get up to the A1 business park, which is there. Oh, there you go, he made me jump. That's a cyclist on the footway. The quintessential hoodie, and that's probably where the fear of cyclists might come from. And I mean, I don't pretend to be able to know the mind of a teenager anymore. So if there's anything in the scheme that can help that lad get some lights on his bike and get in the, you know, get in a bit of proper road space for him, then more power to the scheme, because I think that's, you know, that's the kind of thing. If he sort of sneaks up, and if you're a bit more nervous, you're not a, you know, not a 17-year-old guy wandering along nattering, you're, you know, a mum with a toddler, or an older person with a walking aid or a trolley, then that is definitely gonna, you know, make you jump. So obviously this is a bit of an issue. You've got a car parked in the cycle lane. Not sure why we've got cars parked up here on the verge, and why the council let it happen. I mean, why aren't there tickets all over these cars? It's missing a revenue stream for starters. More cars parked in the bus lane. I don't know if they're converted into flats or if they're just dwellings with loads of cars. The problem is, because the house prices are going through the roof, more kids are staying at home. So if you've got a household with cars, you've got kids at home of driving age are learning to drive to get away from their parents because they're stuck indoors with them, and so you get this vicious cycle. Now this is new. I guess it was done as part of this, which I think is a care home. Another person on the footway, I didn't hear him coming. But he's not like a teenager. He's got his like commuter backpack on by the look of it. He's just obviously not confident enough, or maybe he's forgotten his lights today, and he's just not confident enough to ride in the carriageway perhaps. And you know, if you had a designated cycle lane for him, whether he's got his lights on or not, which obviously is not an ideal situation that he hasn't, but if he was out of the way of me and the cars, less risk to everyone. And that's, I think, you know, and that can be a problem. And you hear of an accident, and then suddenly the drivers pipe up and say, well, he didn't have a helmet on, he didn't have his lights on. But that doesn't mean he deserved to die mangled by a car either. So yeah, I think this sort of blaming and victim shaming across all of this sort of thing, where you get differences of opinions and ages and all the rest of it, needs to stop. And I think that's a hearts and minds thing, and I think these schemes that they're putting in shouldn't be just done in isolation. Right, we've built it, let them come. You've got to do the groundwork, stalls and events, the grand opening of the bit that you've done. Give out lights, give out bells. You know, do competitions for kids to win bikes. Put some of the money in for the schools to make sure they've got adequate cycle parking. Maybe even give the schools pool bikes and stuff like that for the kids to try. Because I think on that side of the road, the reason there's a cycle lane on this side and not on that side is parts of that are shared surfaces we saw earlier on London Road, where you can cycle on the footway. Maybe you can cycle on the footway on both sides. And I was, you know, and obviously those people were doing no wrong by cycling on the footway. I don't know how light it is now. Obviously all the cars have got their lights on. The street lights haven't come on yet, but it's been really hazy this evening. It's been lovely all day, but I know tomorrow it's going to chuck it down, and then it's going to be nice the rest of the week. But I need some time to get the videos edited and uploaded. Well, he's got his lights on and he's just in the carriageway. He's obviously not taken the decision to ride further out in the middle of the road, which is the new kind of thing that is sometimes advised in the highway code, not at all situations, but I would consider it here if I was sort of going at the speed of the traffic, but perhaps he's going a bit slower. And of course there, look, there's a cycle marking. You can go up there. So yeah, you've got, you know, you've got cycle markings in the carriageway there and on the footway. That's so narrow. That's definitely not ideal. Definitely loads of room for improvement here. I really hope they get to grips with London Road. It's such a fast, busy road that if you could have separate provision for everyone, and I imagine you get a fair few commuters coming down here in the morning. Although I don't know, I don't suppose do people cycle on the A1? It's not a motorway up here, but I wouldn't have thought, I wouldn't fancy it. I don't know whether the hardened road cyclists do. I must admit, I mean, my cycling, and I do cycle with mates and that, but our cycling is like a leisurely, if we go in on any distance, we'll take a leisurely ride out to like one of the villages for a pint or something and come back and maybe sort of stage the journey so we can sort of chill out under a tree halfway. I'm no endurance cyclist, that's for sure. So we're coming up to now where we split. So you've got the London Road bears left, and then you've got Drove Road, which cuts right, and Eagle Farm goes sort of hard right, if you like. So that's pretty much routes 3 and 4.